most experienced chart analysts out there, they'll all tell you the same thing. If you can survive this, you end up rich. If you can make it through this most recent dump, you're going to get to where we've all been waiting for, which is frankly alt season. That is still coming in rather short order if history is to rhyme with itself. And I will continue to highlight tons of reasons, including on a macro level, why it makes sense to believe that is what is most probable. And I will also admit that, of course, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know for sure. But I insist that what makes the most sense to believe is that, yeah, of course that's coming. Of course that's coming. Unquestionably, that is what makes sense. Yeah, fine. In life, sometimes the improbable happens, and then we're all caught off guard, and then we can take a look at what would actually unfold and figure out, okay, what did we not properly consider? Okay, it could be one of those moments. Is that probable? Hell no. Absolutely not. What is most probable is that after this, we're going to recover. Bitcoin's going to go in its final parabolic rally. You're going to see the Russell 2000 take off small cap stocks, which has been something that's been a requirement for every single alt season in the crypto market throughout history. And I know it's only like a 16-year history, but still throughout history, that's been a requirement. That's going to come. XRP will be a part of it. In fact, I believe that XRP is going to be either the greatest or one of the greatest beneficiaries of that type of environment because it's been so artificially suppressed for years. But now XRP's unshackled. XRP's got legal clarity, and we're at a moment in time where the first moment in history in the United States, the largest capital market on the entire freaking planet, where the war on crypto is over. It could not be more obvious that this is what is most probable. And there are lots of smart individuals out there and analytics firms using actual data, not just spouting emotions because of what they're wishing upon a star about, but using actual data to come to these types of conclusions, which I'm going to highlight in this video, along with a perspective from a number of analysts as to what's going to happen with XRP specifically. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. $670. So mostly, I mean, we're up a little bit over the last 24 hours, but a lot of sideways price action recently. And well, I say that recently. True, but just the other day, obviously, we had kind of a notable dip. You may have noticed that market's freaking out. All sorts of market participants freaking out here. So you might be wondering, was that it? Is that the worst of what we're going to see? Well, either the answer is yes, or we go down a little bit more, and then the answer will be yes. Either way, we're probably relatively close, especially if you believe this. Here's a post from Nijin Tropic. This is run by the co-founders of Glassnode and Swissblock, which are both fantastic on-chain analytics firms. And just last night, here's what they said. As highlighted by Swissblock, we had a major reset and bottoming signal today. This same signal has identified the past 7 major bottoms. We are going higher. Be careful over the weekend, but short liquidity will get taken out next. Now that sounds like some high conviction, but again, it's not just an opinion. Yeah, it's an opinion, but backed by actual data. So here is the post from Swissblock, actually highlight. It's right there on your screen. Why they believe this. And so what you have is a global bottoms and capital rotation. That's the yellow line up top. And then you have what's titled here as aggregated impulse at the bottom. And so here's what they said. This is from on-chain analytics firm Swissblock, where in the reset phase, the last 7 times this signal triggered since 2024, it marked a major bottom. What happened next? Bitcoin rallied 20 to 30%. Altcoins surged 50 to 150%. And folks, I'll just pause here to note, obviously, the real opportunity for life-changing wealth here in crypto, it's not in Bitcoin anymore. Not at this point. I mean, yeah, it's subjective what's life-changing anyway, and if you hold over a really long period of time, fine. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million one day, okay, super duper. Maybe for some people that's still going to be life-changing compared to where it is now. But that could take a very long time, and that's close to a tenfold increase. How much easier is it going to get a tenfold increase in pretty much any altcoin out there, including XRP? And so the real opportunity for life-changing wealth, it's in altcoins, and this kind of highlights that point. Going back to the beginning of 2024, yeah, Bitcoin rallied from these moments in time 20 to 30%, but altcoins, and XRP's in there, 50 to 150%. Now, of course, XRP increased way more than just 150%. It had been artificially suppressed for years. I mean, before the election, compared to its peak, it was up like, I think close to like 600%. Somewhere in that neighborhood, but and obviously it's come a bit down because the market's come down. But we're not done. That's going to ultimately rampage higher, obviously, right? And so anyway, then they say, we track this with the most accurate tops and bottoms signal in the market. Aggregated impulse by altcoin vector. It measures exponential price structure across the top 350 assets. What's it telling us now? 22% of altcoins show negative impulse. Historically, bottoms form in the 15 to 25% zone. Once the reset completes, ETH and alts tend to lead the next rotation. We're watching it unfold in real time. So, again, it's just one more piece of data that you can look at to be like, well, history does rhyme with itself, as you can clearly see. It's on your frickin' screen right there. Is this time going to be different? Well, usually those are famous last words. This time will be different. Almost never is it different in any sort of meaningful way. Sometimes, sure. Usually, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Here's a post from chart analyst Alex Wasey. Shared this with his 191,000 followers on X. And these are Bitcoin price charts, but again, the asset class moves in tandem, which is why this is relevant to you as an XRP holder. So on the left, you got 2017. You can see what happened here. He's comparing that to where we are right now, and he slapped the 2017 fractal down here. And so you can see if history is going to rhyme with itself, what do you think that means? Way higher price for Bitcoin. And the higher Bitcoin goes, the better it will be for XRP, because people will ultimately take profit out of Bitcoin, and they will throw that profit into coins that haven't rallied tremendously at that particular moment in time. And look, and I understand XRP has already rallied substantially since November, but historically it has two major legs. It gets its first one, which we've clearly already had, consolidates sideways. It could be over half a year, which it has to this point, and then you get the next one. And some reputable chart analysts are arguing that we're in effectively an elongated cycle at this point, having to do with debt refinancing and the impacts resulting from that on global M2. And I've talked about that in other videos, not getting into it further in this one. So there's, I don't know if it's true. What will let time pass? I think the arguments are compelling for that, actually. So there's I acknowledge there's a possibility this thing could drag out into mid 2026 or something like that in terms of when the market's peaking, maybe even further. I'm not convinced for sure that's going to happen. I'm not really taking a stance there, but I do find the arguments compelling for sure. And so, if that's the case, more than a 6-month waiting period for the next crazy leg up here, but it's still coming. So the higher this thing goes, the better it's going to be for XRP. That's what I'm saying here. And here's one of the best in the entire crypto industry so far as I'm concerned. It's chart analyst Credible Crypto. He shared this with his 477,000 followers on X. And by the way, I will note, this guy right here, he is firm in his belief that XRP is going to peak this market cycle somewhere between $20 to $30. And I know that's wild, should that happen. I think that's going to make a lot of people listening very, very happy and very, very wealthy. This is the type of thing that does happen in crypto. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it ain't Fantasyland stuff. And think about what that means. XRP, it bottomed at 28 cents a few years ago. Can you imagine if it goes to $30 freaking dollars? Well, I'm not predicting it. He's predicting it, actually. But it ain't crazy. That type of thing happens in crypto. That's absolutely plausible. So anyway, here you've got the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index going back actually towards the later part of 2018. And here's what he had to say. Here's what he had to say about this. Came across this Fear and Greed Index chart and thought it was actually very interesting to see charted over the life of the current bull cycle that began in late 2018 at $3,000 for Bitcoin. And I'll pause to note here. This is his thesis. He's been touting this thing since then, actually. He believes that what's been happening since then, it's actually all one market cycle. And so I'm not saying that he's right or wrong. I'm not getting into that in this video. That is his stance. I know that pretty much every chart analyst that I follow will say, no, it's 4-year cycles. And I do find those arguments particularly compelling. But I just wanted to note that, since he's wording it in a way where if you're not aware of that, it might confuse you. He's arguing that the reason one of the things he said recently, actually in a separate post, is that one of the reasons a lot of people were disappointed with the 2021 bull run is because that wasn't the end of the cycle. That wasn't the actual blow off top. This is an elongated cycle is effectively what he's arguing right here. And we're now getting to the final stages. And so what will happen here is nothing compared to what what happened in 2021 rather is nothing compared to what's about to happen. That's effectively what he's getting at. Anyway, then he says, you can clearly see our impulsive versus corrective subdivisions on this chart, and you'll notice that the two corrective waves, denoted by red lines, have similarities with extreme fear, which would be less than 25 on the scale, persisting nearly throughout the entire corrective structure. Meanwhile, the impulsive waves, denoted by blue lines, very rarely hit levels of extreme fear, less than 25 on scale, and instead have periods of extreme greed, which would be greater than 75 on scale, with smaller periods of mainly fear, which would be 25 to 50 on scale, sprinkled in on smaller degree corrections within the larger impulsive moves. You can also see that we have just now hit fear on the scale, which when in impulsive structures, which we are in a higher time frame, so just meaning big picture, the fifth and final wave of the entire structure that began in 2018, it tends to mark a bottom in the coming days/weeks. And so, folks, here's another analyst with a fantastic track record who's like, this is looking like it's kind of at or very near bottom territory. So if you've been freaking out the last couple days, stop it. Absolutely, it does not make sense to be fearful here. Even if the market does go lower, which I acknowledge is possible first, before we reverse to the upside, which I think is very probable. Anyway, then he says, as in our past impulsive moves, we can sit in the fear zone for some days/weeks and even push into extreme fear for a bit. But typically, this level of fear and greed doesn't last long before the next leg of the impulsive move occurs. This further strengthens my resolve in the current correction just being a speed bump in the middle of our fifth and final wave of this cycle, and makes me even more confident that the most aggressive portion of this cycle is yet to come, and dips are for buying. Look at it. It's just one more way that you can look at this. This is what history shows you. So, again, history rhymes with itself. And he posted this just last night, 9:55 p.m. Central Time. This is not crazy stuff, folks. History rhymes with itself. We're not done here. And here's a post from chart analyst Melius talking about the Russell 2000 here. And as I noted earlier in the video, small cap stocks, when those things start running, that means alt season, my friends. That is coming. And so here he says, Russell with some volatility around all-time highs, which is kind of expected and normal. Once it enters the price discovery with confidence, crypto will follow. Until then, patience. Do not mess it up. And I just don't know how you couldn't believe that such is the most probable thing to occur. It just seems so freaking obvious. Here's a post from chart analyst Galaxy, XRP USD on the screen. He says, XRP, consolidating below previous all-time high, just like back in April 2017. We keep trying for the green line until we break out. Everything else is noise. And he posted that this morning, September 27th. So what I do keep seeing is that out of the analysts that I follow, no one has lost their conviction that what is most probable is, XRP finally goes into the face melting phase, which we haven't seen in the better part of a decade, frankly. Like true face melting, that's what happened at the end of 2017 going into early 2018. And so, yes, I know we've hit a new all-time high, but in terms of just screaming through intense price discovery, we actually haven't seen that in 8 years. We also haven't seen a new all-time high for XRP priced against Bitcoin since the first half of 2017. But I think it's coming. I call me crazy. I got a little bit of a hunch here that it's absolutely freaking coming. Here's a post from Crypto Wizard. This is an XRP ETH chart. It's brewing. Watch this chart. XRP against Ethereum has started to push higher from the double bottom as expected. XRP is declining less than Ethereum, and in Q4, I expect it to outperform its upside. Patience pays. Yeah, and that's in line with what I've been saying. I'm not a chart guy, mind you, but it's just common sense. And not the timing of it. I don't get into that, but just conceptually, the idea that since April, given how low Ethereum had been priced against the dollar because it had just been cratering, had a lot of ground to make up. So, of course, not surprisingly, XRP lost ground against Ethereum as Ethereum gained ground against the dollar. This isn't rocket science here. And I still said, yeah, of course. And I predicted that going into this. And, of course, time has passed. I was right. Duh. But what I'm saying now at this point is XRP obviously has outperformed Ethereum this market cycle, and it's not done. XRP will continue to make Ethereum its tiny little baby back bitch, and by the time this is over, it's going to be even more embarrassing for all of those Ethereum holders who irrationally hate XRP. Now, mind you, I've been holding Ethereum since 2017. I want it to do well. I'm just telling you, it couldn't be more obvious that what's most probable is XRP is going to just continue to destroy Ethereum. Like by the time this cycle's over, it'll be abundantly clear that XRP is the better investment from this particular juncture in time. I'm willing to bet that. And here you go. Yet another analyst being like, Q4, it's going to be pretty damn good. Well, I don't doubt it. Here's a post from chart analyst Zoom. He says, XRP and XRP BTC, both holding their respective supports. Large time frame structure is currently intact. So I thought I'd just highlight this briefly to note yet another reputable analyst with a great track record saying, yeah, everything's fine. So even if we go lower, it doesn't make sense to freak out. Here's another example. This is chart analyst Altcoin Gordon, 813,000 followers on X. Exceedingly rare to have a following of that magnitude. And I'm just telling you, he's one of the most popular analysts in all crypto, frankly. And he says, it doesn't take a genius to see what happens next for XRP. And he's just got up arrows, for those of you not looking at the screen. That's all you need to know. Up arrows at this point. So he's got a trend line. And he's pointing back to what had happened earlier in this year. It's just consolidation. This always happens. You get a more narrow range of volatility, and then you break to the upside. We're not done. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. He says, XRP is locked and loaded. He posted that in the evening just yesterday. And he's still predicting that XRP is going to peak at $27, by the way. I posted that in a recent video. I'm just highlighting this to show you that these analysts who have been here for more than 5 freaking seconds, they're not sweating the dips and the consolidation. It's like, yeah, it's normal. It doesn't mean that XRP is broken. It's still going to go higher. Duh. And then there is this from chart analyst Ali Martinez. He says, XRP has a price gap sitting between $2.73 and $2.51. And I just thought I'd mention this because there are a lot of analysts. I highlighted this in a video, I guess literally yesterday. Lots of analysts that have been talking about the possibility of XRP dropping down to, level cited vary depending on which analyst you're talking about, but it could be $2.40, $2.50, $2.60. One analyst even warned potentially could be closer to like $2 if the entire market starts going down. So it would be led by Bitcoin, obviously, if you're talking about that kind of fall. But none of the analysts that are warning about that believe that it breaks structure for this market cycle. That wouldn't then indicate that we're going into a bear market immediately and that we don't see alt season. None of the analysts that I follow think that. And the analysts that I follow, if they're charting XRP, they all predicted that it was going to rally before it rallied this past November. And they were right. And I don't care what the hell the analysts that missed this very obvious move have to say about XRP right now. Because, frankly, if they missed it, fine, some of them may just have genuinely not been interested in paying attention. I think a lot of them, they really do suffer from XRP derangement syndrome. And they're toxic Bitcoin maximalists. Like, that's typically what you see here. And that's why so many of them just predicted, XRP, it's fallen out of the top 10 coins by market cap. XRP is going to zero. Is that right? Well, how are you going to act? Because XRP is the number one performing coin since November out of the top 100 coins by market cap. You stupid little bitches. It is so obvious, and it couldn't have been more obvious. XRP was done being artificially suppressed. It's one of the most useful coins in crypto. It's It was such an easy call to see that once you have a level playing field, of course XRP was going to excel. Of course it was going to destroy, from that point moving forward, the return on investment compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Duh. Not rocket science. Yet here we are. Like, we were right. We're on the right side of history. And folks, it ain't done. So yeah, if you survive this, the idea of getting rich, well, if you're sufficiently positioned and you don't make stupid emotional decisions, and FOMO into stuff and panic sell and all that jazz, there's very real opportunity. If those people, and I count myself among them, who believe that we are going to have alt season, if we're right and that's coming, yeah, then those who survive this and don't capitulate here, they have a real, very serious opportunity to get life-changing wealth and get very, very rich. This happens in crypto all the time, and it has consistently for over 16 freaking years. Get yourself a piece, because it's real, and yes, you can achieve that. And that's one of the most empowering things about all of this. There's nothing special about me. I've gotten wild wealth in terms of just my overall net worth. Even though I haven't cashed out to USD yet, my net worth is wildly higher than it would be had I not jumped into crypto. And there's nothing special about me. All I did was buy magic internet money and then do nothing for almost 8 years now. And what I'm telling you is that there's nothing preventing you from doing something the same or similar. You gotta have the intestinal fortitude to weather the storms, all the negative volatility, but you literally can just decide, I would like to be rich, so I'm going to go invest in this asset class where there is this opportunity, where there is this wild volatility, and just see it through. You can just choose to do it. That's a thing that you can do if you want to. And if we continue to be correct about the long-term viability of this crypto asset class and XRP specifically, then you get yours. And to me, it just couldn't be more obvious. There are business models that are possible that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Like, just think about that. And that's aside from all of the great narratives, and I do buy into them, but, the value of being able to hold an asset that can't just magically be confiscated by a third party. Self-custody. Like, there's so many attributes of cryptocurrencies that are so desirable. Like, that's enough to keep the asset class around. There are tons of reasons. And that's without even getting into streaming money like you can stream Netflix. That's without getting into what you can do with smart contracts and everything else. There's so many things that you can do. It's obvious that this is here to stay. And so you can just choose to have your piece of that if you want to. Isn't that empowering, though? Because you can choose to do that. You control that. Like, I find that empowering. Regular people like you and I, we can just do that thing. I think it's cool as hell. And it's very obvious. The number go up, my friends. I mean, I was here when the entire crypto asset class was worth $150 billion. Look where I'm moving my mouse pointer. So it was $150 billion. Maybe it was even less than that. So I can't remember the exact bottom, which would have hit at some point in 2018. But now we're at 3.68 trillion with a T. And this is going to be at 10 trillion at some point in the future, and then tens of trillions. And one day, probably not that far in the future, even if it takes over a decade, I don't know if it will, but I don't know if it'll take that long anyway, it's going to be worth over $100 trillion. You can just choose to have your piece of that. You decide if you want to do that or not. And yeah, maybe it takes longer than you'd want, but maybe it doesn't too. It depends on what you're investing in, how much money you're putting in. Those are a couple of the biggest factors, obviously. And just seeing this through, though, like, you can. And I know it's hard to believe that if you haven't achieved anything like that in terms of investing anyway, it seems like, it can't happen for me, though. Stop it. That's a defeatist attitude, and it's not true. And mind you, I have nothing to sell you. I'm just telling you what I know to be true. You can do this. Now, it's up to you to do it right. You gotta, I think, just having